Hello again, book lovers. The young Alexander, the making of Alexander the Great. So this is a book that does exactly what it says on the cover. As it's quite a chunky 400 pages, I immediately thought, okay, so this will go into detail. Where do they break off the story? What happens after? Well, as he launches himself into Persia is the answer to that, and even then at the end you get a 14-page summary of the rest of his life. But here we focus on his childhood, his youth, his very, very quick growing up. He gets to go to a sort of military school, plays a game called Episkiros, if that's the correct pronunciation. I quote here, "Two opposing teams of around 12 to 14 players would attempt to push the ball over the goal line of their opposition. Perfect training for army cohesion, etc." Yes, that's why they did it. And Alexander was a very sporty chap. Just as his father, Philip, I discovered almost had a biography of battle wounds, scars all over him, lost one eye. So he was going to be a hard act to follow. There was a falling out, in fact, between Alexander and Philip, and in true Game of Thrones style there are a lot of banquets and feasts which turn into flashpoints. Well, I enjoyed it. It's a story I knew in outline, not in detail, so here we get to meet, thanks largely to Arian, the historian, as the source. He was there, he tells us what happened, gives us detailed battle reports so we can live through them as well. And Alexander's teachers, Aristotle being the most famous one of them, and sculptors, Lysippus being the alpha male there, but they all make their way into history via Alexander's life. Another artist, Apelles, fell in love with Pancaste while he was painting her, so, as the text says, Alexander gave her to him. And we get to know his school friends as well and their further military careers, or whatever happened to them. Lovely details as well, including the art of the sapper, what might happen if you dig your tunnels too near to the ground and what might happen to them if they're too far underground. There's a good description of his battle while still under the command of his father against the Athenians with their allies, the Boeotians and lots of other tribes, which is known as the Chaironeia, and led to the Macedonians being able to push back the Greeks and use them as almost as a vassal state. This being the springboard for the Macedonians' power surge, which Alexander of course has to keep up with. And due to his military training and his personality and his speeches, and primarily the fact that he was prepared to muck it out with all the soldiers and be first across the river if they had to wade through, he was very much trusted and beloved by his soldiers in the manner of Julius Caesar later. And throughout a large part of the book, especially in opposition to Philip's reign, there's the character of Demosthenes, the famous Athenian orator, who, to my mind, comes across as a bit of a weasel. Rather cowardly when it mattered, and willing to trick some of his companions in order to enhance his reputation, that kind of stuff. Well, I don't know. Let's see what other readers think. As I say, Arian gives us a lot of nice details like that, but he leaves off at some point, and Diodorus takes up from then on. And off we go later, further east, thanks to the earlier mentioned sculptures and carefully laid cultural traces as he marched through the east. The Alexander myth, which was massive in its day, still exists. We still know who he was. His name still echoes. But if you want to know more about him, especially these nice little details, because of course you have to flesh out the background as well. Rowson, an author not known to me, does that very well. There are sections on updates in archaeology where they've actually discovered the Macedonian capital of Aigai and Philip's tomb, and all that's good. The archaeological bits aren't the bits that interest me the most. They are part of the story, but in the end they open our way into this fascinating world of ancient history, which again, I've read so much of it now, I find that when you put a magnifying glass over any part of it, we are blessed with so many sources, and new sources are continually being found. So let's hope that that continues, and we can continue getting nice, interesting historical treasure troves like this one.